Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the command center of the Orbital Defense Station. The metal walls around him hummed with quiet energy. Earth spun slowly below, blue and peaceful in the darkness of space. Jack had been watching over his home planet. For 15 years, nothing ever happened up here. The most exciting thing was usually a broken satellite or space junk floating too close. The communication officer turned around in her chair. Her face was pale. "Sir, we lost contact with New Montana 3 days ago." Jack frowned. New Montana was one of their outer colonies. 2 million people lived there, mostly farmers growing food for other settlements. Equipment failure? No, sir. Lieutenant Lisa Carter has been trying to reach them every hour. Complete silence. Lisa walked over with a data pad in her hands. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and serious eyes. "Admiral, I picked up something strange before we lost contact." It was the colony administrator, Pete Williams. He was screaming about lights in the sky. Jack took the datapad and listened to the recording. Pete's voice came through filled with terror. "They're everywhere. Ships in the sky. They're not ours. They're firing. Oh God, they're firing on the settlements. The whole valley is burning. They're killing everyone. Why won't they stop? Why won't they?" The transmission cut to static. Jack's blood turned cold. "Play it again." Lisa pressed the button. They listened to Pete's final words 3 more times. Each time, Jack felt his stomach drop lower. "Sir," the communication officer called out, "I'm getting reports from other stations. Kepler's Rest went silent yesterday. Titan's Edge stopped transmitting this morning." Jack stared at the datapad. 3 colonies. 3 settlements full of innocent people. All quiet now. "Get me President Hayes. Emergency channel." The main screen flickered to life. President Robert Hayes appeared, sitting behind his desk in Washington. His gray hair was messy, like he had been running his hands through it. Dark circles hung under his eyes. "Jack, please tell me you have good news." "I don't, sir." "We've lost contact with 3 outer colonies. New Montana, Kepler's Rest, and Titan's Edge. We have audio from New Montana." "It sounds like an attack." The president's face went white. "Attack? By who?" "Unknown ships, sir. The colony administrator said they were firing on settlements." Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "How many people?" "New Montana had 2 million. Kepler's Rest had 800,000. Titan's Edge had 50,000 researchers." The president closed his eyes. "Nearly 3 million people." Jack nodded. "Sir, I recommend we put all defense stations on high alert. If someone is attacking our colonies, do it. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. General Patricia Woods is already on her way. We'll know more soon." The screen went dark. Jack turned to his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. These were good people. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for a moment like this. None of them had ever expected it to really happen. "Alert status red." Jack announced, "All weapon systems online. Scan for any ships that don't belong. If something moves out there, and it's not ours, I want to know about it." The crew jumped into action. Screens lit up around the command center. Warning lights flashed red. The quiet hum of the station changed to something urgent and alive. Lisa stayed next to Jack. "Sir, do you think they're coming here?" Jack looked down at Earth. Billions of people lived down there. They went to work, had families, lived normal lives. They had no idea that 3 of their colonies might be nothing but ash and smoke now. "I don't know, Lisa, but we're going to be ready if they do." 2 hours later, General Patricia Woods appeared. On the main screen, she was calling from the Pentagon. Her uniform was perfect, but her face was grim. "Admiral Morrison, we've analyzed the data from all 3 colonies. The attacks were coordinated. They hit all three at almost the same time, across different star systems. Aliens? Jack asked. Has to be. Our intelligence suggests it was the Zephyrian Empire. They've been expanding across the galaxy for decades. Very aggressive, very violent. Jack had heard of the Zephyrians. Most humans had. They were part of the Galactic Council, like Earth was. But everyone knew they were trouble. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They treated other species like animals. Why attack us? We've never bothered them. General Woods shook her head. Our sources say they don't need a reason. They see humans as weak, primitive. They probably think we can't fight back. Can we? The general paused. Our fleet has 37 ships. The Zephyrians have over 600. Our weapons are basic kinetic cannons and fusion missiles. Theirs are plasma bombardment systems that can burn entire continents. Jack felt the weight of those numbers. 37 ships against 600. It wasn't even a fair fight. What are orders? Protect Earth at all costs. The President is meeting with Ambassador Helen Price. She's going to the Galactic Council to ask for help. Will they help us? General Woods was quiet for a moment. Probably not. Most species are afraid of the Zephyrians. They won't risk war. To save us. After the call ended, Jack stood alone in the command center. His crew worked around him, preparing for a battle they probably couldn't win. Down below, Earth kept spinning. People went about their lives, not knowing that death might be coming from the stars. Jack thought about Pete Williams, a good man, who had spent his life growing food to feed other colonies. Now he was probably dead, along with everyone he had ever known. The Zephyrians had killed them all without warning, without mercy, but humans were still alive. Earth was still free. And as long as Jack Morrison had breath in his body, he would fight to keep it that way, even if they had no chance of winning. Dr. Alan Tucker was eating lunch when his phone rang. He almost didn't answer it. The number was blocked, and he got a lot of spam calls at the research facility. But something made him pick up. Double quotes, Dr. Tucker, this is President Hayes. Alan nearly choked on his sandwich. Mr. President? Doctor, I need you to listen carefully. Authorization code, Alpha 77 Lazarus. Do you understand? Alan's fork clattered to the floor. His hands started shaking. Sir, that code. Are you sure? I'm sure. How fast can you get to Nevada? Alan looked around his small office. He had been working here for 20 years, studying alien technology in secret. The Alpha 77 Lazarus code was something he hoped he would never hear. 4 hours by military transport. A plane is already waiting for you. Dr. Tucker, I need you to understand something. We just lost 3 colonies. Nearly 3 million people are dead. Alan closed his eyes. The Zephyrians? Yes, and they're probably coming for Earth next. I'll be there in 4 hours. The flight to Nevada felt like the longest 4 hours of Alan's life. He stared out the window at the desert below. Somewhere down there, buried under miles of rock and steel, was Project Lazarus. He had helped design it 30 years ago, when he was young and foolish enough to think it would never be used. The military base looked normal from the outside. Just another research facility in the middle of nowhere. But Alan knew better. He walked through 3 security checkpoints, each one scanning his eyes, fingerprints, and DNA. Finally, he reached the elevator. The elevator went down for a full minute. When the doors opened, Captain Susan Blake was waiting for him. She was tall and strong, with black hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Her uniform had no rank symbols that most people would recognize. Dr. Tucker, we've been waiting for you. How long since activation? 6 hours. We're bringing everything online now. They walked through corridors carved from solid rock. Emergency. Lights cast red shadows on the walls. Alan could hear machines humming in the distance, waking up after decades of sleep. How many people know about this place? Counting you and me? Maybe 50 people on Earth. The president. A few generals. The engineers who built it. They reached a massive steel door. Susan pressed her hand to a scanner, then typed in a code. The door opened with a deep rumble. Alan stepped into the chamber and felt his breath catch. The room stretched away into darkness, bigger than a football stadium. Rows of cylindrical containers lined the floor, each one 30 feet tall and glowing, with soft blue light. How many? Alan whispered. 300 containers. 50 different weapon systems. Everything we could think of. Alan walked to the nearest container. Through the clear metal, he could see thousands of tiny silver spheres floating in liquid. Nanite. Swarms, Susan said. Self-replicating. They eat metal and turn it into more nanites. One container could consume an entire battleship in 20 minutes. They moved to the next container. This one held what looked like a black metal sphere covered in strange symbols. Quantum disruptor. It tears holes in space-time. Anything that gets too close just ... stops existing. Alan shook his head. We built all this? We had help. You remember the crash in Antarctica? 2157? The alien ship. I worked on that project. We learned a lot from that wreck. Took us 50 years to understand even the basic concepts. But we kept working, kept improving. They walked deeper into the chamber. Container after container of weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Biological agents that could adapt to any alien DNA. Energy weapons that could punch through any known shield. Gravity bombs that could collapse stars. Susan, these weapons. They could destroy entire planets. That's the idea. Alan stopped walking. We're not supposed to be like this. Humans are supposed to be peaceful. We're explorers, not warriors. Susan turned to face him. Her eyes were hard. Doctor, 3 million of our people are dead. They were farmers and miners and scientists. They never hurt anyone, but the Zephyrians killed them anyway, just because they could. I know, but no buts. The galaxy thinks we're weak because we choose to be peaceful. They think our technology is primitive because we only show them the simple stuff. Well, today they learned the truth. They reached the center of the chamber. A large screen showed a map of the solar system. Red dots marked the locations of hidden weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt and on the outer planets. We've been building this network for 70 years, Susan explained. Every mining station, every research outpost, every satellite has weapons hidden inside. The galaxy thinks we're just digging for rocks and studying planets. They have no idea what we've really been doing. Alan stared at the map. Hundreds of red dots. Each one representing enough firepower to destroy a fleet. On the moon? The Prometheus. Array. Kinetic bombardment platforms. We can drop tungsten rods on any target in the solar system at 90% the speed of light. The outer planets? Automated defense platforms. If anything enters our solar system without permission, they'll know about it. Alan walked to another container. This one held vials of green liquid, biological weapons, targeted viruses. Completely harmless to humans. Lethal to any known alien species within hours. We've been collecting DNA samples from every species that visits Earth for the past 50 years. Through diplomatic meetings, among other things. Amazing how much genetic material people leave behind when they shake hands. Alan felt sick. All those years of peaceful contact with alien species. All those friendly diplomatic dinners and cultural exchanges. And they had been collecting samples the whole time, preparing to kill them if necessary. Dr. Tucker, I know. This is hard to accept, But the galaxy is not a nice place. Species get conquered every day. Entire civilizations get wiped out because they couldn't defend themselves. So we prepared to wipe them out first. We prepared to survive. There's a difference. Susan led him to a control room overlooking the chamber. Banks of computers lined the walls. Technicians worked at stations, bringing weapon systems online. Status lights changed from red to green as each platform reported ready. How long until? Everything is active? 12 hours, maybe less. And the Zephyrians? Our scouts report a large fleet massing at their forward base. 600 ships. They'll probably attack within the week. Alan sat down in a chair and put his head in his hands. We're really going to do this. Dr. Tucker, look at me. He raised his head. Susan was standing in front of him, her face serious, but not unkind. 30 years ago, you helped design these weapons because you knew this day might come. You knew that someday humanity might face extinction. Well, that day is here. I hoped I was wrong. So did I, but we weren't. And now we have a choice. We can let the Zephyrians destroy Earth like they destroyed our colonies. Or we can show them what happens when someone attacks the human race. Alan looked out at the chamber full of weapons, each one capable of ending civilizations, each one built by human hands, human minds, human ingenuity. The galaxy will never trust us again. Good. Fear keeps you alive longer than trust. A technician called out from his station. Captain Blake, Prometheus Array reports full operational status. Nanite production facilities, online and manufacturing. Quantum disruptors, charged and ready. Susan turned back to Alan. Doctor, in 12 hours, the most powerful weapons ever created by human beings will be ready for combat. What we do with them will determine whether humanity survives or becomes just another extinct species. Alan stood up slowly. Outside, somewhere in space, an alien fleet was preparing to destroy his world. Below him, humanity's true power was awakening from its long sleep. Let's make sure they regret attacking us. Ambassador Helen Price sat in the Galactic Council chamber, surrounded by representatives from 50 different species. The chamber was huge, with curved walls that rose up into darkness. Each species had their own section, designed to make them comfortable. The Altarians needed water tanks. The Crystalline Collective required special light frequencies. The insectoid hive minds clustered together in warm, humid pods. Helen sat alone in the human section. Just one chair, one desk, one voting panel. Humans were still new to the galaxy, still seen as primitives who had barely learned to leave their own planet. That was exactly what she wanted them to think. War Commander Dex High of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the central podium. He was 8 feet tall, covered in gray scales, with 4 arms and yellow eyes that never blinked. When he spoke, his voice rumbled through the chamber like thunder. The Zephyrian Empire has claimed the Outer Rim territories previously occupied by the human infestation. These worlds now serve the glory of our empire. Helen stood up, her hands shaking just enough for the other ambassadors to notice. Commander, Dex High, those were peaceful colonies. Farmers, miners, researchers. They never threatened anyone. Dex High's 4 eyes focused on her. Weakness is not a virtue human. Your species spreads like a disease, claiming worlds you cannot defend. We have simply corrected this mistake. Nearly 3 million people lived on those worlds, and now they do not. This council should thank us for removing a future problem. Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. The Altarian representative, Ambassador Bluin, spoke up. The destruction of peaceful settlements violates council law. Dex High laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. Council law applies to civilized species. Humans have been part of this council for 12 years, and still use primitive chemical rockets to reach orbit. A fight with kinetic weapons and fusion bombs. They are barely above animals. Helen forced tears into her eyes. It was an old trick she had learned in her first diplomatic training. Please, honored representatives, Earth is defenseless. We have 37 ships, all of them science vessels or cargo haulers. If the Zephyrians attack our homeworld, when we attack your homeworld, Vexai corrected, the Zephyrian fleet departs for Earth in 72 hours. Your pathetic species will join the others we have eliminated. Helen collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Around the chamber, other ambassadors looked away. Some seemed genuinely sad. Others just looked relieved that it wasn't their species being threatened. Ambassador Kretak of the Mineral Consortium finally spoke. Perhaps the humans could be relocated to a reservation world, allowed to exist under Zephyrian protection. We do not keep pets, Vexai said. The human infection will be completely eliminated. Helen stood up again, wiping her eyes. I need to contact my government, to tell them to tell them to prepare for evacuation. There is nowhere to run, human. The Zephyrian Empire spans 300 systems. Your ships are too slow to escape our fastest scouts. Helen nodded and walked out of the chamber, her shoulders shaking with apparent fear. Once she was in the hallway, alone, she stopped crying instantly. She pulled out her secure communicator and dialed a coded number. This is Lazarus Command. This is Price. 72 hours. Full fleet deployment. Understood. How did your performance go? Academy Award worthy. Vexai thinks we're completely helpless. Perfect. Maintain cover until the shooting starts. Back. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Mitchell was working in her laboratory. She had been the head of Earth's Xenobiology Division for 8 years. Officially, she studied alien life forms to better understand the galaxy's biodiversity. Unofficially, she was building weapons. Her lab looked innocent enough. Microscopes, computers, sample containers filled with various alien tissues. Most of it was legitimate research. But in the back room, behind 3 layers of security, she kept her real work. Status report, she said to her assistant, Dr. Mike Johnson. The Zephyrian agent is ready for deployment. Field tests show 100% lethality within 6 hours of exposure. Sarah looked at the small vial in Mike's hands. It contained a clear liquid that looked like water. But this liquid was designed to destroy Zephyrian DNA from the inside out. It was completely harmless to humans, but it would kill any Zephyrian who came into contact with it. How do we deliver it? Stealth probes disguised as civilian evacuation ships. Each probe carries 50,000 doses. Enough to contaminate their entire fleet's air supply. Sarah nodded. They had been working on biological weapons for every known species for the past 20 years. Not because they wanted to use them, but because they knew someday they might have to. What about other species? The ones that might help the Zephyrians? We have agents ready for the Corvan hegemony, the Stellar Republics, and the Trade Federation, just in case. Good. Launch the probes as soon as the Zephyrian fleet enters our solar system. Meanwhile, on the far side of the moon, Colonel Danny Foster was making final preparations at what the galaxy knew as Lunar Mining Station 7. To anyone watching, it looked like a simple facility for digging up moon rocks and processing rare metals dotting reality. It was the control center for the most powerful weapons platform in human history. Prometheus array status? Danny asked his operations officer. All 50 platforms online and charged. Targeting systems locked onto the Zephyrian staging area. Kinetic projectiles? Tungsten rods loaded and ready. Each rod weighs 10 tons and will impact at 91% light speed. Danny smiled. The galaxy thought humans were primitive because they used kinetic weapons. They didn't understand that humans had made kinetic weapons into an art form. A 10-ton tungsten rod moving at near light speed carried more destructive power than most. Species' best energy weapons. Stealth systems? Active. To any sensor scan, we still look like a mining operation. Danny walked to the observation deck and looked out at Earth rising over the lunar horizon. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was preparing to destroy his homeworld. They thought they were going to fight helpless primitives. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Back on Earth, Admiral Jack Morrison received a coded message from Admiral Julie Barnes, commander of the Asteroid Belt Defense Network. The message was short. All stations ready. The rocks have teeth. Jack smiled. For 50 years, humans had been setting up mining operations throughout the asteroid belt. The galaxy saw them as desperate scavengers, picking through space debris for useful metals. They had no idea that each mining station was actually a heavily armed fortress. Hidden inside the asteroids were quantum disruptors, gravity bombs, and enough conventional weapons to destroy entire fleets. The asteroid belt had been turned into the galaxy's largest minefield, and no one knew it existed. General Patricia Woods appeared on Jack's screen. All preparations complete? Ready on all fronts. Project Lazarus is fully active. The Prometheus array is charged. The Asteroid Defense Network is in position. And Dr. Mitchell's biological weapons are loaded onto stealth probes. What about our conventional fleet? 37 ships, just like we've always told everyone. They'll put up a good show while the real weapons do the work. General Woods nodded. The president wants to know if you think this will work. Jack thought about all the preparations, all the secret weapons, all the years of careful planning. General, the Zephyrians think they're attacking a primitive species with barely any technology. They're about to learn that humans are very good at two things: hiding what we're really capable of, and making sure anyone who hurts us regrets it. And if other species figure out what we've been hiding, then they'll know to leave us alone. 72 hours later, the Zephyrian fleet began moving toward Earth. 600 ships, the largest invasion force in galactic history. War Commander Thexhai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human solar system grow larger. On his screens, any sign of human fleet movement? Negative, Commander. Our scouts report only 37 ships in Earth orbit. They appear to be science vessels and cargo haulers, just as intelligence indicated. What about planetary defenses? Primitive orbital platforms with kinetic cannons. Nothing that can threaten our shields. Thexhai laughed. This will not even qualify as a battle. More like an extermination. But deep in the asteroid belt, Admiral, Barnes was watching the Zephyrian fleet approach. Her weapons were charged and ready. Hidden nanite swarms waited in dark corners of space. Quantum disruptors powered up silently. On the moon, Colonel Foster's finger hovered over the firing button for the Prometheus array. In Nevada, Dr. Tucker watched hundreds of weapon systems come online. And on Earth, Admiral Morrison prepared to show the galaxy what humans really were when someone made the mistake of attacking their home. War Commander Thexhai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The blue planet looked peaceful and defenseless, perfect for conquest. Range to target? 3 million kilometers in closing, Commander. Human fleet is moving to intercept. Thexhai looked at his tactical display. 37 human ships were leaving Earth orbit, arranged in a loose formation. They looked pathetic compared to his 600 warships. What are they doing? Unknown, sir. They appear to be ... charging directly at us. Thexhai laughed. Brave, but stupid, just like humans. Open fire when they reach 2 million kilometers. But Commander Kevin Bell, leading the human fleet, had no intention of getting that close. His job was to make the Zephyrians focus on him while the real weapons prepared to strike. All ships, this is Bell. Remember, we're the distraction. Make it look good, but don't take unnecessary risks. The human ships spread out, firing their kinetic cannons and fusion missiles. The weapons looked impressive, but barely scratched Zephyrian. Shields. It was exactly what HFY expected from primitive humans. Their weapons are as weak as our intelligence suggested, the Zephyrian tactical officer reported. Shall we destroy them quickly? No. Let them exhaust their ammunition first. I want them to understand how hopeless their situation is. Hidden on the far side of the moon, Colonel Danny Foster watched the battle through his sensors. The Zephyrian fleet was exactly where he wanted them. Prometheus Array, this is command. You are authorized to fire. Copy command. Firing sequence initiated. In space, hidden among what looked like mining equipment, 50 massive kinetic cannons swiveled toward the Zephyrian fleet. Each cannon held a 10-ton tungsten rod, accelerated to 91% of light speed by powerful magnetic fields. The rods were invisible as they streaked through space. No energy signature, no exhaust trail, nothing for Zephyrian sensors to detect. They were just pieces of metal moving very, very fast. The first rod hit HFY's flagship in the engine section. At near light speed, the tungsten penetrated shields. Like they weren't there, punched through armor like paper, and kept going. The entire rear half of the ship simply disappeared in a flash of vaporized metal. What was that? HFY screamed as his bridge shook violently. Unknown impact. We've lost engines and rear weapons. More rods slammed into the Zephyrian fleet. Each impact destroyed whatever it hit completely. Battleships split in half. Cruisers exploded into clouds of debris. The mighty Zephyrian fleet suddenly found itself under attack by invisible weapons. Where are they firing from? Unknown. Sensors show no energy signatures. Find them. But Admiral Julie Barnes wasn't giving them time to think. Deep in the asteroid belt, her hidden stations came online. What the Zephyrians had thought were. Mining operations revealed their true nature. All stations, this is Barnes, release the swarms. Containers that had been drifting through the asteroid belt for decades suddenly opened. Millions of tiny silver spheres poured out, each one no bigger than a marble. They looked harmless, but they were the most dangerous weapons humanity had ever created. The nanite swarms moved through space like living things, attracted to the metal hulls of Zephyrian ships. When they made contact, they began to consume the metal, turning it into more nanites. Each swarm could reproduce itself in minutes. Commander, something is eating our hull. HFY watched in horror as his ships began to dissolve from the outside in. The nanites spread from ship to ship, consuming everything they touched. Entire squadrons disappeared as their hulls were turned into more nanites. Use plasma weapons. Burn them off. But the nanites adapted faster than the Zephyrians could respond. When they fired plasma, the nanites evolved heat resistance. When they used energy weapons, the nanites learned to absorb energy and use it to reproduce faster. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Barnes watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Quantum disruptors, you're clear to fire. Hidden throughout. The asteroids, devices that looked like communications arrays, suddenly activated. But instead of sending messages, they sent tears in space-time itself. Reality began to break down around the Zephyrian fleet. Black holes the size of basketballs appeared and disappeared, swallowing whatever came too close. Space itself became a weapon as the laws of physics bent and twisted. A Zephyrian battleship tried to escape by jumping to hyperspace. The moment it entered the quantum field, it simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not damaged, it just wasn't there anymore. Commander, we need to retreat. Where? HFY demanded. Half our ships are gone. The other half are being eaten by some kind of disease. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Mitchell watched the battle from her laboratory. The Zephyrian fleet was in chaos, but she wanted to make sure none of them escaped. Release the probes. Small ships that looked like civilian evacuation vessels launched from hidden bases around Earth. The Zephyrians ignored them, focusing on the invisible weapons that were destroying their fleet. The probes flew straight into the middle of the Zephyrian formation and exploded, releasing clouds of biological agents into space. The virus spread through the air systems of every Zephyrian ship, carried by their own ventilation. Within minutes, Zephyrian crew members began collapsing at their stations. The virus attacked their DNA directly, shutting down their immune systems and organs. There was no cure, no treatment, no way to stop it. Medical emergency on all decks. Commander, the crew is dying. All of them? Every Zephyrian on the ship. The humans. The human prisoners are fine, but our people are falling over dead. HFY realized the horrible truth. The biological weapon was designed specifically for Zephyrians. The humans had studied their DNA and created a virus that would kill only them, but the worst was yet to come. In the depths of Nevada, Dr. Allen Tucker activated the final phase of Project Lazarus. Gravity bombs armed and ready. Launch. Devices the size of refrigerators launched from hidden silos across Earth. They flew toward the largest concentration of Zephyrian ships and detonated in a flash of twisted space-time. Suddenly, the Zephyrian flagship began to collapse in on itself. Gravity increased by 1,000 times, crushing the massive ship down to the size of a marble. A gravity field spread, pulling in other ships, debris, even light itself. Emergency jump. Get us out of here. But it was too late. The gravity bomb created a temporary black hole that swallowed a quarter of the remaining Zephyrian fleet in seconds. Commander Bell, still leading the human fleet, opened a communication channel to the surviving Zephyrians. War Commander HFY. This is Commander Bell of the Earth Defense Force. Do you surrender? HFY looked around his ruined bridge. Of his 600 ships, fewer than 50 remained. His crew was dying from a virus he couldn't cure. Invisible weapons were picking off his remaining vessels, one by one. This is impossible. You're primitives. You have no technology. We have exactly the technology we want you to think we have. Your mistake was believing it. How? How did you hide all this? Bell smiled, though HFY couldn't see it. We learned a long time ago that the galaxy is full of species who judge others by their weapons. So we made sure you only saw the weapons. We wanted you to see. Another Zephyrian ship disappeared in a flash of quantum energy. The kinetic cannons, the nanites, the biological weapons. How long have you been planning this? About 70 years. Ever since we found that crashed ship in Antarctica and realized we weren't alone. We knew someday someone would try to destroy us, so we prepared. But the Galactic Council, you've been members for 12 years. Ambassador, Price has been very helpful. Every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation, we were learning about you, your technology, your biology, your weaknesses. HFY felt sick. Every time he had met with humans, every time he had dismissed them as primitives, they had been studying him, planning for this moment. You ... You planned to kill us all alone? No, we planned to defend ourselves. There's a difference. Another. Gravity bomb detonated, swallowing 10 more Zephyrian ships. We gave you every chance to leave us alone. But you chose to attack our colonies. You chose to kill our people. So now you get to see what humans are really capable of. HFY watched. His fleet disappear around him. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, conqueror of hundreds of worlds, was being destroyed by a species they had thought was barely above animals. I surrender. Please, we surrender. Too late for that. You said it yourself. You are going to completely. Eliminate the human infection. Well, now we're going to completely eliminate the Zephyrian threat. The last of Vexy's ships exploded in a burst of nanites. His flagship, crushed and broken, drifted dead in space. The war commander who had come to destroy humanity floated in the wreckage of his dreams of conquest, not in 6 hours. The most powerful fleet in galactic history had been completely destroyed. Not a single Zephyrian ship escaped Earth's solar system. Admiral Morrison opened a communication channel that broadcast to every species in the galaxy. This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. To any species listening, this is what happens when you attack human colonies. This is what happens when you threaten our people. This is what happens when you underestimate us. The message spread across the galaxy at light speed, carrying news of humanity's victory and the terrible weapons they had kept hidden for so long. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from 50 species sat in stunned silence as they watched recordings of the battle. The mighty Zephyrian fleet, 600 ships strong, had been completely destroyed in 6 hours. Ambassador Bluon of the Altarians spoke first, his voice shaking. How many human casualties? Ambassador Helen Price sat calmly in the human section, no longer playing the role of a frightened primitive. 0? 0? That's impossible. The Zephyrians never got close enough to threaten any of our ships. Ambassador Kretek leaned forward. What were those weapons? Our scientists can't identify half of what we saw. Helen smiled. Trade secrets. You've been lying to us for 12 years. We've been protecting ourselves for 70 years. There's a difference. On Earth, President Robert Hayes stood in the Oval Office, surrounded by his military advisors. Admiral Morrison had just finished briefing him on the battle results. Sir, we intercepted communications from 17 different species. They're all demanding explanations. Let them demand. General Woods, what's the status of Operation Nemesis? General Patricia Woods consulted her tablet. 48 human ships have jumped to Zephyrian space. They're equipped with the full range of Project Lazarus weapons. Opposition? None, sir. Every Zephyrian military installation has surrendered without firing a shot. They saw what happened to their main fleet, the president nodded. How long until we control their entire empire? At current pace, 72 hours. They have colonies on 53 worlds, but none of them have any real defenses. Casualties? Minimal. Most Zephyrian forces are surrendering as soon as our ships arrive. Word of our capabilities has spread throughout their empire. On the moon, Colonel Danny Foster was overseeing the dismantling of Zephyrian wreckage. Teams of engineers were studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Sir, we've recovered intact shield generators from 3 battleships. The technology is actually less advanced than ours. How so? They rely on brute force, massive power generators to maintain strong shields. Our approach is more elegant. We punch through their shields because we understand the physics better. Danny smiled. Anything else useful? Their computers are primitive. No quantum encryption, no adaptive firewalls. We've already downloaded their entire military database. What did we find? Locations of every Zephyrian base, ship, and weapon. Intelligence files on every species they've been watching. And detailed invasion plans for 17 different civilizations. Including us? Earth was supposed to be the first of 5 primitive species eliminations scheduled for this year. Danny felt cold. Who were the others? The Peaceful Coalition, the Harmony. Worlds, the New Democratic Union, and the Crystal Gardens Collective. All peaceful species. All species the Zephyrians thought couldn't fight back. Meanwhile, in Nevada, Dr. Alan Tucker was beginning the process of putting Project Lazarus back to sleep. Most of the weapons would be stored again, hidden, until they were needed. Doctor, what about the nanite swarms? Alan looked at the readouts. Millions of tiny machines were still active in space, having consumed the metal from Zephyrian ships to reproduce. Can we recall them? Most of them. But some have evolved beyond our control protocols. They're still eating metal and making more. Nanites? How many? Maybe 10% of the original swarms. They're spreading through the outer system, consuming asteroids and space debris. Alan frowned. Will they threaten our own ships? Unknown. They were programmed to target Zephyrian hull materials specifically, but evolution doesn't always follow programming. Keep monitoring them. If they become a problem, we'll deal with it. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was facing a similar issue in her lab. A biological weapon had worked perfectly. Too perfectly. The virus is still active in Zephyrian space. It's spreading to any ship or station that had contact with the fleet. Can we stop it? Not without going there personally. The virus was designed to be unstoppable once released. Sarah looked at the data. How many Zephyrians are still alive? In their home system? Maybe a few million. Out of a population of 12 billion. Sarah felt sick. She had created the virus to defend Earth, but now it was wiping out an entire species. Sarah, we didn't have a choice. They were going to kill every human in the galaxy. I know, but 12 billion people. 12 billion people who supported a government that committed genocide for fun. This is what they chose. Back at the Galactic Council, the debate was growing heated. Ambassador Helen Price listened as species after species demanded explanations for humanity's hidden weapons. You violated every treaty on advanced weapons. Research. We signed no such treaties. The Geneva Protocols clearly state the Geneva Protocols apply to human conflicts. These were self-defense weapons designed to protect us from alien threats. Ambassador Veltar of the Trade Federation stood up. You've upset the balance of power. Humans were supposed to be a minor species. According to who? You? According to your own technology assessments, your ships use chemical rockets. Helen smiled. Our cargo ships use chemical rockets because they're cheap and reliable. Our military ships use something else entirely. What else? That's classified. The crystalline collective representative flickered with angry light patterns. Humanity must submit to weapons inspections immediately. No, no. We're a sovereign species. We don't answer to this council. You're members of this council. We're observers in this council. There's a difference. Ambassador Bluin tried to calm the situation. Helen, surely you understand our concerns. These weapons you've revealed, they could destroy entire civilizations. Yes, they could. That's rather the point. But what's to stop you from using them on us? Helen looked around the chamber at all the frightened faces. Simple. Don't attack us. The silence that followed was deafening. For 70 years, humanity has been peaceful. We've never started a war, never conquered a world, never enslaved another species. We're explorers and scientists and farmers, but we're not victims. She stood up, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The Zephyrians thought we were. Weak because we chose peace. They thought we were primitive because we didn't wave our weapons around for everyone to see. They were wrong. What do you want from us? Ambassador Kretak asked. Nothing. Trade with us or don't. Be our friends. Or ignore us. We don't care. But if any of you ever attack human colonies again, if you ever threaten our people, if you ever make the mistake of thinking we can't defend ourselves, ... She gestured to the screens still showing wreckage from the Zephyrian fleet. Remember this. Helen gathered her things and walked toward the exit. As she reached the door, she turned back. Oh, and one more thing. We've discovered that the Zephyrians had invasion plans for 17 other species. the Peaceful Coalition, the Harmony Worlds, and 15 others. You might want to thank us for eliminating that threat." She left the chamber in stunned silence. 3 days later, Admiral Morrison received reports from the final phases of Operation Nemesis. Captain Susan Blake transmitted from the Zephyrian homeworld. "Admiral, the planet is secure. Zephyrian government has formally surrendered. We're beginning the process of dismantling their military infrastructure. What about survivors? Maybe 5 million on the homeworld. Small populations on remote colonies. The biological weapon was ... very effective." Morrison felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. The Zephyrian Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was finished, but the cost had been enormous. "Susan, what's the mood of the surviving Zephyrians?" "Terror, mostly. They keep asking if we're going to enslave them or eat them." "What did you tell them?" "That we're not interested in enslaving anyone. We just want to make sure they never attack anyone." "Again, are they cooperating?" "Completely. They're so afraid of us now that they're begging to help." Admiral Morrison looked out at Earth, spinning peacefully below his station. The blue planet looked exactly the same as it had a week ago, but everything had changed. Humanity was no longer a minor species to be ignored or dismissed. Captain Blake established a monitoring station on their homeworld. Full weapons research ban. No military ships larger than patrol craft. And they pay reparations to the families of our colonists. "Understood, sir." Morrison opened a new communication channel, broadcasting on all galactic frequencies. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. 1 week ago, the Zephyrian Empire attacked 3 peaceful human colonies and murdered nearly 3 million innocent people. Today, the Zephyrian Empire no longer exists." He paused, letting that sink in across the galaxy. "To the species of the galaxy who value peace, who respect the sovereignty of others, who believe in the right of civilizations to exist without fear, humanity stands with you. To those who believe that might makes right, who think peaceful species are easy targets, who would commit genocide for conquest, ... double quotes, Morrison looked directly into the camera. "We are watching you. We know who you are. We know where you live. And if you ever threaten innocent people again, you will join the Zephyrians in extinction." The message reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. On 1,000 worlds, governments held emergency meetings. Military commanders looked at their invasion plans and quietly filed them away. Warlords who had been preparing to attack